Meilah Daf, we're continuing with the sugya, trying to figure out if you have kachi kachim and you're not allowed to use it. If you use it, you're over Meilah. At what point can you start using it and not being over Meilah? Either step one, which is shchita, and from shchita on there's no isra Meilah, or is it step two, Kabbalah, which the Gemara calls heter zrika? You receive the blood in a vessel and you're able to do zrika. Or is it step three, which we call zrika, the Gemara calls heter achila. From that point on, kohanim can eat it. And from that point on, perhaps, only that point on, there's no me'ilah. The Gemara wants to prove that it's step three. It's where you have heter achila, from that point on, there's no me'ilah. The Gemara brings two brises that are basically identical. Just one is talking about noisar and one is talking about pigul. And it says that noisar and pigul, after zrika, there's no me'ilah, there's no isra me'ilah. That would seem to say that it's step three. Only after zrika is there no me'ilah. Says the Gemara, no, perhaps you could be doicha and say that it means step two, that there was a Kabbalah. And if it's ra'ui for zrika, in other words, if there's enough time in the day to perform zrika, then it removes the me'ilah. But if there's not enough time in the day, for instance, if you did it right before shkia, and physically there's not enough time in the day to do the zrika, then it doesn't remove the me'ilah. We learned also in a braysa that pigul, if somebody has a thought that he's going to eat this meat outside of its allotted time, in kachim, the me'ilah continues. So you could say that perhaps it's talking about, it doesn't say when exactly he had this machshava. You'd say perhaps he had this machshava also by step number two, before the zrika. And maybe after zrika, even though he had a machshava during zrika, then it would help that there shouldn't be any more me'ilah, and that would be a contradiction to the halach that we learned from Rav Gidel. Now, rather than saying another case in the braysa that if somebody performed the pigul after zrika, the braysa goes to another case completely and talks about kachim kalim. The reason is, the braysa says that kachim kalim, a machshava of pigul doesn't create kedusha in the kachim kalim. In other words, it ruins the zrika and the animal stays status quo, not kaddish. There's no me'ilah. And what the Mishnah is coming to Mechadish is a tremendous chiddush. This same zrika with the same machshava has two different effects, one on kachim and one on kachim kalim. On kachim, it has an effect that it can remove the kedusha from kachim, even though it's not a good zrika. It has a zrika with pigul. And the reason is because although a kain can't eat this meat, but on the other hand, it's no longer kachim Hashem. Me'ilah is only when it's Hashem's, and now, so to speak, it's not Hashem's anymore. Yes, the kain can't eat it, but it's not kachim Hashem. On the other hand, and therefore there's no me'ilah, it changed the status of the kachim. But by kachim kalim, it doesn't change any status. Since there's no kedusha before, and all you try to do is do a zrika, and the zrika is not a good zrika, the zrika doesn't help, and therefore it stays status quo, and it's not kaddish. Says the Mishnah, there's a machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva. If meat that went outside of the Beis Hamikdash and the kohen performed zrika inside the Beis Hamikdash, does that zrika have an effect on the meat to remove the me'ilah from it or not? Rabbi Eliezer says it has zero effect because it's a zrika on meat that's outside of the Beis Hamikdash. Rabbi Akiva says it has an effect, and I'll prove to you it has an effect. Because what happens in a situation where somebody brought another chatas because his original chatas got lost, and then he found the original chatas. Now he has two chatas, and he brings them to the Beis Hamikdash and he shechs them, even though he wasn't supposed to shech them both, he shechted both of them. The zrika of chatas A has an effect on chatas B, even though chatas B is pasul, because it's moisar chatos, it's pasul, it's the extra chatas. Nevertheless, it has an effect on the second one. So certainly, kal v'chomer, that the zrika on one part of the animal should have an effect on the part of the animal that's outside, that's pasul, because it's outside of the Beis Hamikdash. Now, their machlokes, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer, is also in kachim and also in kachim kalim. And the Gemara says that I need to say both. And over here, the Gemara is going to use the opposite svar of what we said before. That I would think that if there's a zrika that's not a proper zrika, it should bring kachim kalim to me'ilah. It should give it kedusha. Why? Because there's halacha im alu leyerdu. These kachim kalim, even though they had a bad zrika, if you put them on the mizbeach, shaloika halacha, you don't take them off. Meaning the zrika did have an effect. If it had an effect, it should at least have an effect to give it a little bit of kedusha, and there should be a isur me'ilah. Now this zrika has another effect. It has an effect on pigul, on noisar and on tameh. In other words, once the zrika is effective, then I'm over on noisar if I leave it over. I'm over on pigul if I have a machshava to eat a b'chus zman, and I'm over if I'm tameh and I eat it. But if it doesn't have an effect, then it doesn't. Then there's no noisar. And finally, Rabbi Yochanan says one halacha. He says this that Rabbi Kiva said that the zrika inside the Beis Hamikdash has an effect on meat that's outside the Beis Hamikdash. That's only if there's some meat left over in the Beis Hamikdash. And according to Tosfos explains, we use the concept of migui. Since the zrika has an effect, at least somewhat of an effect, on some of the meat that's left over in the Beis Hamikdash, therefore it also has an effect on the meat that's left outside of the Beis Hamikdash. Have a wonderful day.